Welcome back to another episode of Next Gen DDS. This is your co-host, Wes Lyon. With me in the second chair, co-host Dr. Scott Menaker. Scott, welcome back.
Hey, Wes. Good to see you again. Always fun. And we're looking forward to a nice chat today. We talked last, one of our previous podcasts on the benefits of owning the practice. But there's three things that got to happen as you get into that we call them the 3 Ps: patience, persistence, and perseverance. And we're going to spend a little time talking about that and how you use that to help guide you as you go down this path, because success doesn't typically happen day one. You may be successful, but long-term success takes years and sometimes even decades. That's what we're looking at if you're owning a practice, owning that for a period of time and reaping the benefits of that. And that just it's not easy. It takes hard work. And we're going to talk today about the 3 Ps and how doctors can just keep that in the back of their mind as they're moving forward in this.
I think in today's society, especially where, I think a lot of people go by materialistic things to try to give the appearance of success or immediate success. And a lot of times these people aren't truly successful, right? We see the balance sheets, we see what's going on personally, and a lot of these people just don't have what it takes. So I think after last episode, we want you to do this. This is a great one to give you the reality of what goes on here. And kind of to your point there on not everything goes the way you want it. Every single business owner I've ran into has a story that we all now laugh about. But the story of being on the edge
we might not have been laughing about them at that moment.
No.
But certainly we could look back and go, that was just, who made that decision? And and we're gonna make some of those along the way. Even we're never going to get it 100% right.
No,
but the ability to pivot is going to be really important.
And this is, before I kick it over to you to go through these 3 Ps, this is your business school lesson. Scott, you went to dental school. I went to business school. Let me tell you, they didn't teach me how to run a business in business school. They teach you how to work in some corporate environment, be the accountant, be in the marketing department. Nobody teaches you how to run a business. And at some point in your career of owning a business, you just start to figure out that nobody truly knows what they're doing. They just get really comfortable with making decisions and quickly pivoting if they don't work out.
Right. So hopefully, let's just say you've got your own practice, maybe you've bought your own, you're going to try and continue some of those systems. But in some cases, you may want to kind of gut them. You don't go gut them, and we'll call it, let's start with patience. You don't go gut them on day one.
No.
I've got a doc that's buying a practice. The staff salary is really excessive. It's just an older practice. The doctor's just taking care of his staff. Most of them been there 25 years. They're bloated, and and I've said to this doctor, you're going to have to cut some of that staff. Now, don't go do that day one, because you've got to figure out who are the right people and who are the ones that are going to be important for that long-term success, and also who are the ones that are going to follow your path. So when we talk about patience is one that success can come. Sometimes it can come pretty quick. Hey, listen, I'm swamped. I don't know what to do with all these people. But it also patience in terms of how do you build that long-term success? How do you take it from, let's say, 1 hygienist to 2 hygienists? Or, now I've got to go get a 3rd one. I can't get a 3rd one. Here in North Carolina, you got to have another doctor to do that. Now I've got to add another doctor. And I remember... we may have talked about this previously, but one of our founders of this firm going way back was Dr. Charles Blair. And I bought my partner out. It was kind of a mess. I practiced solo for 12 years. I was patient, but I now had patients. My patients were now on a 9-month recall because I had so many patients, and I needed to go add a doctor, a business staff, a hygienist, and an assistant kind of in one fell swoop. And I came in to talk to Charles. I said, Charles, I need to pay you for an hour or 2 of time. And we sat down, and I'm telling him what I'm doing. And he kind of looked at me and he said, Scott, that's great. He says, you need to wait. And I'm looking at him going, Charles, you're crazy. And he's like, He says, go get your house in order. And I repeat this very often because it just said to me, be patient. You're going to be in the right place, but you need to have the right systems and protocols and everything in place. And I spent the next year making sure we had, may not have been a full year, but I took the time per his suggestion I was patient to really get it right. And so when I brought all those 4 people in day one, we were humming. We were humming and we were ready to go. Now, the typical decision would have been just to go hire all these people and just hope it worked out. And in this case, I was very patient to get it right. And I think it was the best advice that he could have ever given me.
Yeah, I always tell people this. Sometimes I sniff it out with the doctors. Go, look, the foundation on your home has cracks. And you think you want to do X, but we need to fix the foundation first. And you just have to have that. And it takes a while for any business owner to get their foundation, right? Whether or not, to your point, it was, Dr. Blair telling you, or it's, look, I've got this staff that's left over from the other doctor, because most people are going to run into this issue.
Absolutely.
Most senior doctors, when they don't need the money anymore, they start handing out raises like candy just to keep the staff around, because they don't want to do hiring anymore.
Right, that's right. They're going to give them 4 or 6 weeks of vacation. I've seen that. And
then you show up, and some of these staff members you're going to want to keep, and some of them you're going to want out the door, but you don't know who's who on day one. And don't trust the doctor who sold it to you either. Like, nothing against them, but they've got an emotional relationship going on with each of these staff members. And, they may hate one of them because she was trying to tell them to get off paper charts for the last 15 years. And she might have been right, and he might love another one just because, she's doing the QuickBooks or something and he trusts her. But there's, she might not be doing a whole lot else. And it's not to say their opinion might be right, but you need to go in, get your own opinion of the people, figure out what's going on. And that takes time. A lot of the times you buy a practice, you just kind of have to make sure you got enough new patients coming in, got enough work, and just look and pay attention.
Right. And you'll see, and as we talk to doctors to look at buying practices, we're identifying kind of what are some of those key metrics that they've got to go handle pretty quickly to improve the profitability of the practice. And every doctor is a little bit different in terms of how they want to approach that. But patience is always a good thing. I remember many, many years ago, I spent my summers working at an amusement park, and they had concerts every Saturday night, and bringing in some of the big acts. And one of them was Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy Buffett, he was just this laid back guy from the Florida Keys, but he had his fans, and they were selling beer, and they would start screaming for him to play a song, and he would just get up there and he'd look like he was going to play, and he'd go, "All in the goodness of time." And then he'd go play something else because he was just holding him on for that when he was ready to go do it. And it was really a pretty neat, and he did it every year. He did the same thing. But that was just his way of being in control. So, so we just say to you, be very patient. Patience meaning we don't want you to not be in a hurry to do it, but do it in the right time frame. I remember when I added CEREC, some of the single visit crown systems, the imaging, and making the crown in the office. I literally spent a year writing a system and a protocol, how we were going to change my practice and how we were going to change appointments and time, and having this discussion with my staff so that when we did it, we weren't looking at each other and go, why did that just take 2.5 hours? And we're now 2 hours behind on Mrs. Jones, who's been waiting on me. I didn't want to do that. So there's a way to be patient and being in a hurry. I said, always kind of having your foot on the gas pedal. It just doesn't always have to be always at the floor.
No, and here's the advice I give all the young doctors. Look, we want to get the skill set, be in a hurry to get your skill set, right? When you graduate school, I am less concerned. Make sure you got enough money to live off of, but get your skill set, because that will pay off for the rest of your life. So you should be in a hurry to do that right off the bat and work hard to do that. But not other things. You want to be patient on the other things. Then you get your skill set. Yeah, you should be forthcoming in trying to buy a practice. Now, some of you entrepreneurs out there are going to try to own 8 locations, and you think this is a great idea. May or may not be. But You're going to go buy a practice. You're going to buy into one. You're going to get really good at running a smaller practice. Some of you may actually have the opportunity to buy into a humming partnership, which is phenomenal, right? Then you have a whole lot less work to do. But most of you probably going to buy a solo doctor out. Okay, be patient in the aspect of, hey, I don't need a second doctor. I don't need to grow dramatically. I need to run this like a well-oiled machine. Because oftentimes I tell doctors, hey, run a one-doctor practice, get it to these metrics, and then call me back and we'll talk about this second doctor. And I don't tell them no right off the bat because then they won't listen to me. But then they call me back and they go, Wes, this is awesome. Why would I want a second doctor? I'm like,
and I'd say there's some real benefits, and we'll talk about that maybe in another podcast of the benefits of a partnership. But you can still make, and based according to our plans and how we advise our clients, you can still make just as much money being a partner. Maybe even more, depending on what the practice is doing.
No, definitely. So we're not against them. It's just some people, their idea is they want 4 associates working for them, and it's like,
there's a lot of headaches to that.
That's a lot of headaches. See how much you do on your own, and then see if that makes you happy.
And again, everybody's a little bit different. Yeah. But so we talk about the patient.
But I'll give you the flip side of that, so everybody understands what you could get into. I had a doctor call me up, and he had these grandiose plans, and he was not patient. So he ended up with a couple associates. Practice completely in network. He's only collecting 60 cents on the dollar because he wanted to be that mega practice. So he calls me up and he's asking some weird questions about something. I can tell he's just going down the wrong road. So I said, hey, don't mean to be offensive here, but can I be blunt with you? He goes, yeah. I go, you work harder than probably most doctors I know, but you only make $150,000, $200,000 a year, and you're trying to figure out why. He goes, yeah, you nailed it. I was like, it's the insurances. That's, you didn't get one that was running without the insurances. So now you keep trying to grow one that's poorly run and think that's going to somehow, the bigger you get, the more profitable you're going to get, but you're writing off so much that's not the case. You're just getting a bigger and bigger headache. So he appreciated it, and about 2 years later, he called me back and said, Wes, all right, I've been doing it for 2 years, and you're spot on. What do I do?
Right. And it's a little hard to unravel it. You can, but it's a little bit harder to go do from that side.
So we say have patience. It's not be very selective on the things you need to get done, but be patient on, hey, if this is where I want to end up, and I want this or I want that, it's not going to come overnight.
Right. And it leads into the persistence part, number 2 on our Ps. So persistence. So I know when I got out of school, I came back to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I grew up, and it's like all these people know me, and all of them are going to come. Well, that doesn't really happen. I think, some people they're happy where they're at. I think there's some of those people you don't want to see as patients. They're probably going to be a little difficult, but you kind of think, well, if you build it, they will come, or if you come back to Charlotte, they will come. Well, they may, but it takes persistence to go do that. So I know when I got out of school, I was going to the Chamber of Commerce head meetings, and I was going every Friday, on a Tuesday morning at 7:30 and meeting other people who were trying to grow their business. And then I joined the Jewish Community Center. I joined the board as on one of the committees, and I started coaching teams before I even had kids. I was doing it because I wanted to, but I was doing a lot of things to try and do that. And if I based my success on the first 2 years of doing that persistence of doing it for 2 years wasn't enough. But when I got to about 4 or 5 years, the spigot turned, and I was the guy, and I was getting referrals from people who were not even my patients, but they had been around me enough to do it. So you can't just, if somebody says, hey, listen, we're gonna do this SEO and we're gonna get you number 1 on Google, and it's gonna cost you $900 a month, and you're gonna get all these patients. I don't think that's going to happen. It doesn't happen in almost anything that I've ever seen, and any doctor telling me. It takes long-term, persistently doing things to grow that practice.
You're spot on. And the frustrating part, I think you kind of hit on it. I'm going to hit really hard on it. The frustrating part is you're going to do all this stuff and you're going to do it and do it and do it. And you're not going to see a single patient out of it. But if you do it for long enough and you are persistent with it, when that spigot opens, does it half open, quarter open?
It fully opens. And it was, the Jewish community is relatively small in Charlotte, but I was just the guy. I was there because I liked it. I served on the board for 25 years, was president. I did it because I loved it and believed in it, but there was a real benefit and I knew that. There was a real benefit of being the person who was out in front of that. And you can do that whether it's your church or wherever you go. There are places to go find that. You just have to go find it and then just be persistent with your involvement and your engagement in that. And it's all the things you're doing to continue to grow your business. You have to keep doing those things.
And every business owner, doesn't matter what business you're in, SEO is something that's relatively important, but it's really mostly important because when people get referred to you and they forget who you are and then they go look up dentist and they go, oh, Dr. Scott Menaker, that's who, Johnny told me to go see.
Right. Because right. I mean, I never paid a lot. I mean, SEO was a little bit before my time, but it certainly was there at the end. I didn't have to go pay a lot of money for that because there was already our practice had built in. We had a nice logo. It was Smile Charlotte. It was something very easy to remember. But we had a presence that. But if you Googled my name, probably 5 or 10 dentists are going to show up in front of me. You don't want to get lost in some of that stuff. So we're not big proponents of throwing tons of money at the SEO stuff because
you throw enough to be relevant.
But if you throw so much at it, you're better off building it personally, your staff doing it, whether it's doing fairs or showing up at races or.
The other thing that's going to happen is if you try to take the shortcut out, you're going to get the patients you don't want. The patients you do want are going to come from your persistent effort marketing. And marketing's like a shotgun. Like, I don't know if you can think back, you might have an idea of, it's a shotgun, you're going to shoot it and you don't know which pellet's going to hit that clay, but one of them is. When you find out what one, you start to throw gasoline on that fire, but it's going to be frustrating. You're like 20 places and be persistent. And at the end of the day, probably 1 or 2 of them are going to end up feeding you that's going to be your resource. Like I remember when I was in DC, I did similar work, but I wasn't dental specific. And I went to everything. I mean, I was at every CPA meeting, every attorney meeting, you name it, every single day of the week I was at the meetings until eventually somebody introduced me and said, hey, Wes, you need to meet this CPA over here. And I met the guy, and then it was just like this floodgate of now all of a sudden I'm wildly successful, but I had to go shake hands with 500 CPAs before I met that guy.
That's right. And you just have to keep having a good attitude about those things. Now, if you're doing something and it's just leading nowhere and after a while, you've got to pivot. And we're going to talk about a little bit in perseverance here in terms of perseverance meaning kind of going from a failure to success, not always having those things. Perseverance is understanding where you're wanting to go. Maybe you may not get there immediately. You may have some failures along the way, but you're just continuing to drive towards that piece. It could be, hey, listen, I want to do clear orthodontics, and maybe I really like it. I think it's great. And maybe you just didn't find the right path in, or maybe you weren't marketing the right way, or maybe you had the wrong staff to help you do that. And you've got to then persevere, pivot from in that place to get you to that land. We always talk about invite the right staff to stay with you. I remember, as I said, when I was getting ready to go from 7 staff people to 11, that one day when I was adding the associate and adding the additional people, I looked down at my existing staff that I liked, and I worked really hard with them. And I said, listen, we're getting ready. This train's getting ready to leave the station. It's going to a new place. and I want you to be on the train with me. But if you're going to drag your feet, I'm inviting you to get off now. Because if you're going to drag your feet, when we get going, I'm going to throw you off. And again, I was persistent. We talk about perseverance. I had the best associate in the world. For a year and a half, we were slaying the world with where we were going. He was driven and going, and he came and told me he wanted to go back to be a pedodontist. And it just crushed me. I was so happy and excited for him. And I helped him and did everything I could. But the plan there was like, and I didn't just quit that. I brought in another associate. And that one didn't work. And I asked him to leave because we were just going in a different path. And then when I got to my next associate, my third one, Trish became my eventual partner. We were together until I retired. So I persevered through maybe some not ideal things, but it was good for me and it was good for the practice. And you have to be able to go and do those kind of things as you're moving through your practice.
Yeah, that kind of gets into that. You have to have thick skin to be a business owner. I mean, you're going to do they don't seem like boneheaded things at the time, but then nothing happens. Like maybe to your point, maybe you decided you were going to market clear aligners and you did it and you spent a bunch of money and you went to training, you did all this stuff, and then you decide to market it and you got 0 leads off of it and you're $75,000 into it. That stinks. Time to pivot, though. You can't sit there and feel bad for yourself.
Well, you talk about, making a big investment. Dentists are obviously, we've talked, I think, in the past about how dentists we go from exciting thing to exciting thing. And in some cases, we spend a lot of money. And for a long time, as I was getting into CEREC and becoming very proficient at it, I was basically hired by some of this Patterson Dental was the main company selling it at that time. I was hired to be what they called a rescue trainer. When doctors had spent $125,000, it's obviously more money now, but at the time, $125,000 would get you in. Well, there were doctors that had bought this. It was now 6 months later sitting in the corner, and Patterson was worried that these doctors were going to basically make them take it back and give them some of their money back. And I was hired to go in to help shed the light to how to integrate this. Because one, I'd worked hard at it, but two, it was pretty easy to go do. But these were docs that, to your point, Wes, that just basically threw up their hands and said, never mind. And they'd spent 6 figures doing this. It's crazy. They didn't have either the patience, they didn't have the persistence, and they didn't have the perseverance to get through. I remember the first one I ever did. I was the sales rep was there, and he was helping me, and I had this very nice man, this older gentleman, just the nicest man in the world. And I told him, I said, "This is the first one I'm doing with you." I said, he goes, "Well, I will help, Scott. I will help you however I can." So we did this. I made the crown. I said, "Now I'm going to get you just to gently bite together." Well, he chomped, and you heard this crushing sound of this crown breaking into pieces. And he went, "Uh-oh." And I went, "Uh-oh." And so that was my very first one, and I could have gotten really flustered. And listen, I had other failures down the road until I really figured it all out, and it became one of the smartest things that I ever did. But it took patience, it took persistence, it took perseverance for myself as well as for my staff and my partner as we were integrating this into our practice.
Yeah, and I think to these the perseverance, just learn to have thick skin. You're going to make mistakes. No business owner has ever been perfect. It's just not. I heard Elon Musk describe his job. Somebody asked him, "Oh, it must be fun," and he goes, something to the tune of, "No, some of us just love chewing glass." That was his response. And it really hit home because it's like, that's, the minor issues that come up, your staff members are going to solve. And then the major issues are going to be yours. And it's going to be your decision, to your point, like, hey, when you messed up that first one and you just spent $120,000, I'm sure it felt like you were chewing glass.
I had to make sure my patient wasn't chewing the glass as the porcelain cracked. But yeah, it takes, it takes hard work. We've talked about that. But you've got to, and again, it doesn't mean you don't pivot. I mean, I know we were doing an oral cancer screening with a rinse. It was kind of new. We thought it was going to be exciting, that it was going to really provide a benefit. Now, there was a financial benefit to doing that, but we literally got to the end of the year. We had a staff meeting with our staff, and we really came to the decision as a team, this wasn't really benefiting our patients. We were making some money on it, but we literally stopped doing it. So it wasn't me. I guess I could have kept doing it, but that would have been persevering for the wrong reason. We made a decision at this point that there was no benefit for the patient. We always say, do things that are going to benefit two people, the patient and you. If you're doing it just to benefit you, you're going to probably start doing procedures and things that the patient doesn't need. And I know when I get sales reps coming into my office, they would say, hey, doctor, you're going to love this. This is going to add $70,000 to your practice. And I go, you don't even know what I do in my practice. How do you know this is going to benefit my patients? I go, well, if and they go into their rehearsed sales pitch. And I go, get out of here. This is not, because one, I felt like if you're doing things just to make money, you're probably not going to be a very good person. There's plenty of bad people out there just doing things for the money. If you do things the right way for the benefit of the patient and for your practice, it takes care of itself.
Yeah, the first guy I worked for out of college, it was fine. I worked for two. They were in a partnership that was failing.
It's a bad place to be. So
I have to work underneath both of them. One of them has all these ideas about how to add more money to the bottom line. The other one, his idea for marketing, he always told me was do the right thing and the rest will take care of itself. And we were in a financial advisory firm. So you've got one partner out there spending tens of thousands of dollars marketing, getting all these meetings. And then we got the other one who's literally just strolling in every day. Motto, do the right thing, the rest will take care of itself. When you looked at their two silos of businesses, the guy doing all the marketing was struggling to get anybody to sign up. The other guy, it was just like, the phone rang like it was a dental practice. Right. Hey, I need to talk to, so-and-so said, I need to come talk to Wes or Stan. I've got this issue. And we're like, just come on in, come talk to us. And that part of it right there, do the right thing, the rest will take care of itself, really applies well into dentistry too.
It is. Take care of your patients. Do the right thing. I always looked at my patients and said, I'm going to treat you like you're my mother. And I love my mother. And they would laugh and chuckle. And I said, so I'm not going to recommend anything for you that I wouldn't do or recommend for my mom or my wife, my kids. And it makes it easy to go to sleep at night.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to our 3 Ps here. When you're looking at it, you've got to be patient, persistent. Because if you start doing things, kind of on the edge, or you start over-treating a little bit, reputation's going to get out there and it's going to just trash you. And that part can be difficult to just remain on, that, okay, you're going to go in there, you're going to do all the right things. You're not going to overtreat. You're not really thinking about the bottom line when you're going in to recommend a procedure. And then you're out on the other side and you're trying to do all this marketing and nobody's coming yet. And it takes a little while. It's frustrating, but you give it a few years and all of a sudden it starts to turn over. It does start to click.
If you do things the right way, follow kind of the 3 Ps, a lot of the things that we've talked about in all of our other podcast, you'll get to that promised land. You'll enjoy your work. You'll be financially secure, and you'll have a good time being a dentist.
No, definitely. Well, I think for everyone out there, just remember, Scott, what are the 3 Ps they need to pay attention to?
Be patient, be persistent, and persevere as you go along through your career and your life.
Yep. Things won't always go your way, but I think if you hold true to those, you'll be in good shape here.
Sounds great. Well, another great discussion, Wes.
Great. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining, Scott. And for those of you listening, we'll see you next week.